It is my pleasure to introduce to you the leader of the panel, Nadya Zhexembayeva. And Nadya will introduce later the minister and the other colleagues who will, colleagues, it's not my colleague, unfortunately, minister, but she will introduce the other panelists. And Nadya is a faculty member at our school. She comes from Kazakhstan. She was educated in the United States in Weatherhead Business School at the Case Western University. She is a chair, Coca-Cola chair, chaired professor of sustainable development. This is a chair that we have now already 5 years. And as the name says, Coca-Cola is supporting it. So we are very happy to develop research on this field and different publications. And Nadya published her first book on this topic, Embedded Sustainability, The Next Big Competitive Advantage, co-authored with Chris Laszlo, published by Stanford University Press, and by the Greenleaf Publishing in UK. What can I still say about you, Nadya? She became a Slovene citizen. Perhaps this is interesting, because we would like to keep her here. So, Nadya, floor is yours.
It's a great honor to be here again. It's become a good tradition to meet everyone at the Bled Strategic Forum. I do have an amazing panel, and I will introduce them in just about a few minutes. But I wanted to say a few words as a kind of framing for this discussion. I wanted to be very informal, very direct, and we are discussing future economic opportunity for this region, Central Asia and Russia, and I hope that your direct questions will make it interactive. But before that, I want to say a very personal story. I was born in Almaty, which is the capital of then Soviet Socialist Republic of Kazakhstan, at the era where Soviet Union was living through this beautiful kind of adoringly cold season. The name of the season was stagnation, zastoy. At that time, the biggest memory I have of my childhood are the lines, the long lines, a few hours that you spent every day trying to buy some food. And one particular very cold winter, I got up at 6 a.m. and I was about 7 years old. And at 6, I was standing in line to buy some sour cream. So you stand in line from 6 to 8, and the store opens at 8, and you hold your glass jar, and the sour cream is poured into your glass jar, and then you close it and you walk back home. So it's 8 a.m. I've been outside in the cold for 2 hours. I'm 7 years old, and I'm walking with my glass jar home, and I slip. It's cold, it's ice, and I slip. And it happens in a matter of a second. So the next thing I remember is that I'm laying flat on my stomach with a glass jar above my head, intact. This is the history of economic opportunity in the Soviet Union. This is what it was just a few decades ago. Now, fast forward a few decades, and in the winter of 2011, I got a completely different story. I got a very unexpected call. It was a call from ENRC. Any of you heard of a company called ENRC? How many? One. ENRC is a FTSE 30 company, a very large company, and it stands for Eurasian Natural Resource Company. It's one of only 2 companies out of Kazakhstan that went through IPO in London Stock Exchange. They are a true multinational. They are working in Brazil. They're in 5 countries in Africa. They are in Switzerland. They're, of course, in London. They're in China. But they are most and foremost a Kazakh company with 65,000 people working in mining and metals. And they called me for a very simple reason. It was an executive committee that asked, could you come and help us with a tiny problem we're having? We are a company that entered through IPO without having any clue how West operates. At the peak, we were at 50 billion capitalization. Today, we are at 10 billion, and we are falling. Even though our EBITDA is still approaching 40%. We are as good as it gets, but our capitalization keeps falling and falling because the West seems to not understand who we are. And here are a few press clippings for you so you understand what's going on. And one of the press clippings was from The Guardian, and the title said, "ENRC, still more Soviet than the city." I think what this panel is about is not, is there an opportunity in Russia and Central Asia, or is it not there? Of course, we all agree, it's a growth market. There's a huge opportunity in Russia, there's a huge opportunity in Central Asia. The question is, how do we engage with this region? Because we seem to misunderstand each other. We seem to constantly be in the battle of how do we engage and what are the rules of engagement with this region. And I'm very thankful that I have 4 wonderful panelists who will help us understand, and they are representing this East meets West kind of dimension, trying to explain to us, trying to share their experience of how can we look at the future opportunity of this region, and also how can we engage with it in a way that will be productive. ENRC, unfortunately, is leaving London Stock Exchange this year, and it's in the process of going private again. It did not make it in the West. So the question, can we find a different history? Can we create different rules of the game? So with me in this panel, and I'll invite them to take their seats, and then they will also speak a little bit with their opening statements, and then we'll open to the questions to all of you. I would like first to invite to the panel Mr. Sven Alkalaj, Under Secretary General of the United Nations. I'm very happy to have you. And then also from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russian Federation, he comes here with actual team, Sergey Ezhov, Acting Head of Division of the First Department of CIS countries. We also have here from business, from Sberbank, Mr. Mesea Mihaescu, Director of the IT Strategy Division, and Minister of Infrastructure of Special Planning of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Samo Amirzel. Welcome. Welcome. I will first give a floor to each panelist to say a few words. It's my pleasure to invite Mr. Alkalaj for his opening statement. I think here is good.
I'm coming from United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. Maybe this name is a little bit misleading, but it's one of the 5 regional commissions of United Nations covering 56 member states on 3 continents, North America, Europe, and Asia. This regional commission is dealing with a number of sectoral issues, starting with energy, with environment, water, statistics, economic cooperation, integration, transport. So all of these economic issues are very, very important, and where they are implemented in all of these member states. What we do mostly, it's work about legislation, rules and procedures, conventions that we work to be regional and global in order to influence governments, especially in the developing countries, to implement those regulations and conventions and come closer to the developing status of the countries of Western world, and implementing this legislation in a sense that it will bring much friendlier environment, much safer transport, less pollution, and make these countries to really becoming a very, very developed states. This topic was very interesting for us, Central Asia, although Russia is also part of our member state, but we do a lot of work in Central Asia. I will mention that special project for economies of Central Asia, shortened called PECA. It's done under the UN umbrella. It's indigenous organization with the member states in Central Asia and working very closely with UNEC, bringing us to work on all of these issues. As I said, rules and procedure, regulations, best practices, institution building. And in that sense, we are working very closely. I traveled practically all countries of Central Asia except Uzbekistan. Maybe that has some also meaning, because immediately after this session, I'm taking off to Turkmenistan on the invitation of the President of Turkmenistan. So that tells that we are working very closely in trying to have those member states work under the and together with the UN in making life citizens of this country better. On the second issue, there are a number of issues which are important for those countries, which are creating political tension among those countries. I would just mention, and maybe later on go develop water and energy, which are the crucial elements for those countries, which are even bringing some countries to the brink of the war, of the conflict among their borders, and bringing such big tensions in the region. So looking on this topic that we had Russia and Central Asian countries, it's of the utmost importance that, first of all, that we understand what this relationship is all about, where Russia is leading to, what kind of methods and impacts Russia can have, and working with the governments of Central Asia. So I think the topic of this panel is very important. I will touch more in the details as we go along, and I think this is one of the developing region where we have to pay a lot of attention. I think it's worth going into details of the events and there for better understanding, so we can help the people of the region. Thank you very much.
In my statement, I'd like to draw your attention to the new reality that emerges as three CIS nations progress towards closer Eurasian economic integration. I'd like to thank Professor Lehmann for mentioning this definition. Indeed, in 2010, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Russia established the customs union. And in 2012, the single economic space with a market of almost 170 million consumers. The new association is based on universal integration principles consistent with the WTO standards. It is harmonized in terms of macroeconomic policies, competition rules, technical regulations, transport and natural monopolies, tariffs, as well as agricultural and industrial subsidies. Last year, the Eurasian Economic Commission, a supranational regulatory body for these two formats, was established. It is responsible for the matters of tariff and non-tariff regulation, customs administration, technical regulation, trade regimes with third countries, competition, and energy policies, and some other issues. The three member states have provided the Commission with respective competencies, both exclusive and shared. The body is supposed to assume in the future authority for other matters as well. The Commission issues resolutions that are binding and become a part of the common legal framework. It is essential that the decision-making process within the Commission eliminates a possibility of any member state dominating another. Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Russia each have one vote in the Council of the Commission at the Deputy Prime Minister's level, where all the decisions are taken by consensus. Each of the three countries delegated 3 members to the board of the Commission. This organ makes its decisions also by consensus or by qualified majority. The 9 members of the board are employed as international independent officials. One should admit, the customs union and the single economic space are developing much faster than some other integration blocks, including the European Union. It is the case in part because we take into account the experience of the European Union as the most successful integration project so far. Our integration is already bringing quite practical benefits for us. The fact that the common customs code of the customs union complies with international practices has reduced the terms of customs procedures application by 30%. Since the establishment of the customs union, the volume of mutual trade of its member states has grown 2 times. The customs union and the single economic space helped improve the investment climate in the 3 countries, create more favorable conditions for doing business, create new jobs. We do observe significant integration effects. The Eurasian process is becoming an important driver for raising competitiveness of the economies of Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan. In this audience, it is worth mentioning that the Eurasian Economic Commission closely cooperates with the business dialogue, Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan. The Consultative Council on Business Cooperation, affiliated with the board of the Commission, represents a platform for discussing issues of interest for the business community. Generally speaking, close integration based on common values with a new political and economic foundation is certainly what our times call for. It reflects objective trends of this globalization era, including the increasing role of regional alliances. This is not our invention. We just follow current trends based on pragmatism and common sense. It is only natural to take advantage of economic, infrastructural, logistic, transport connections we inherited from the time when our countries were all parts of the same state. Frankly speaking, it was the financial crisis of 2008-2009 that made us, as well as the rest of the world, look for ways to minimize its negative effects, seek additional stimuli for economic growth. That was a period when Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan fully understood that embracing integration could be an efficient means of mitigating the negative consequences for their economies, and that it was finally time to act, not just to talk. At that time, the legislative framework was almost in place. We just had to sign necessary agreements. With the customs union and the single economic space as a foundation, we expect to establish the Eurasian Economic Union by the 1st January 2015. The purpose of the union is to make maximum use of mutually beneficial economic ties among the CIS nations. This project is our priority. We consider it as a unification model that will shape the future not only of our 3 countries, but also that of other post-Soviet nations. The new union will be open for interested countries to join. We expect it to become a hub, effectively connecting Europe and the Asia-Pacific region. The Presidential Declaration on Eurasian Economic Integration, a kind of roadmap signed in November 2011, confirms our intention of further consolidation of comprehensive, mutually beneficial and equal cooperation with other countries and integration organizations, including the European Union. That would entail creation of a common economic and human space from Lisbon to Vladivostok. Of course, the parameters of Eurasian integration should be determined by participating nations. We believe that further Eurasian integration in formats that are complementary and compatible with the process underway in the European Union meets our common interests. Thank you very much.
Dr. Mihaescu.
Thank you, Nadia, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me. I come with a different perspective, yeah? So you can think of, let's call it economic opportunity in 3 different directions, yeah? You can look at a country that has no highways. Yeah, it's obvious, yeah? You start a company to build highways. Or you can look at a collection of countries that have economic activities and you try to optimize it. Yeah? You try to find new laws, new agreements, free trade, or, and this is the 3rd way, and this is what my focus has been in my career and what I do at Sberbank, is you look at new opportunities. You look at innovation, you look at new technologies, emerging technologies, new business models. And you can think of a bank like Sberbank, who has like half of the economic activity of the banking activity in Russia, and is growing internationally. There is Sberbank Slovenia, there is Sberbank Czech Republic, and so on, and of course large Sberbank presence in Kazakhstan or Belarus. Yeah? That's why do we need to look at these things? Yeah, we just grow organically with the loan book. Yeah, we don't have to do anything. You have seen the agreements being signed today will provide the financing for that and the financing for other similar activities. Why do we care about technologies? And what we see is that all around us, things change. And the real long-term economic opportunity is to take advantage of that, is to look at new things that you can do in a country, in a company, in a specific industry. We have seen in various parts of the world, various industries being destroyed in a creative destruction kind of way by new technologies. The cars that we drive today are different. Airplanes that we use today are different. Internet has changed almost everything. Yeah? There are colleagues, and I've seen from various companies, talking about the bank of the future, and they do something as dramatic as saying, this is the bank of the future. Maybe, maybe not, but we think that each country, each economy needs to benefit from that and needs to support it, needs to help build it. In this respect, Sberbank has a view where our long-term strategy is built on top of looking at the emerging technologies of today. We don't necessarily look in the past for those ones. We look in the past, as we have heard today, to understand our future better. But the emerging technologies of today is what we put in our strategy for the future. And we support that, and this is what I'll talk about later today through our venture capital strategy. In line with the panel, we have a venture fund that is focusing in a specific region. For example, we have a venture fund for Krasnoyarsk, we have a venture fund for Tatarstan, we have a venture fund for Moscow region, which is not only the Moscow city, but all the cities, the towns that are in that area. At the same time, we have a venture fund that is looking at investing in new companies all over the world, including Slovenia, and we started having meetings this morning talking exactly about that. So this is the overall framework that, that I'm here for, to talk about and to see how Sberbank can help with this kind of new economic opportunity. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, it's really an honor for me today to be able to speak here with you. It's not just an honor, it's also quite a challenge to be able to speak in front of such an eminent audience. I must say that I do not have such a great story that Ms. Zhexembayeva told us, but many of us still remembers that we also had some similar stories. Me personally, I still remember how happy I was when I got bananas that were delivered from Austria. And I believe it's quite important that we're all aware where we started from. I believe that all these experiences made us a little bit richer, and that we do not have to forget about this, and sometimes even in these hard economic times, we are aware of that, and we still remember that this economics used to look a little bit different. But not to go too much away from what I promised on my ministry, for me, coming to this position from privately owned company, sometimes it's really a little bit tough, because, you know, before when I was working in privately owned company, I was speaking what I wanted to speak. So in other words, nobody was there to tell me what to speak. But of course, as a minister, I promised that I will follow the agenda, I will follow these official words I have to say to you, and maybe later on panel say a few words more. But I promised that I would not deviate too much from what I should tell, maybe just a little bit with some ideas according to my speech. But anyhow, as I can see, Bled Strategic Forum is maintaining its tradition of addressing the most important global issues. development of cooperation with Russia and Central Asia is definitely such an issue. The deep economic and social crisis that is currently affecting also Slovenia is a time of great challenge. But on the other hand, this time also offers and results in opportunities to generate new idea. When speaking about new idea, we speak about new way of thinking. Slovenia seeks its opportunities as a country with a global-oriented economy and an important transport position. Following background, Russia and Central Asia are among the most strategically relevant areas. Relatively rapid economic development of this region is opening up many opportunities, which, however, still remain to be sought out, identified, and utilized for the benefit of all parties involved. I am glad to say that Slovenia is already strongly presented in different roles on the market of Russia and Central Asia. More and more visible is also Slovenian transport position. In Slovenia, in this very period of crisis, its international traffic is failing. On the other hand, total traffic is actually increasing on the account of interchanging and development markets of Russia. Of course, we are also here speaking about Ukraine and the whole Central Asia. The shortest course from these regions to the Adriatic and the countries of Southwest Europe, Italy, France, Spain, and Portugal runs right here through Slovenia. In strengthening cooperation and seeking for opportunities, one of the toughest challenges will be the transport sector, which is an inseparable accompanying part and condition of economic development. I have in mind the financial, most demanding construction of missing infrastructure on the one hand, and elimination of many barriers that hold up the transport of goods and people on the other. The improvement of transport connection is perhaps the most important key to generate competitiveness of the whole area in the globalized world. Our common challenge is to intensify the cooperation by consistently applying the principles of sustainable development. Together, we will have to find solutions that will pursue the objectiveness of sustainable mobility at the macro-regional level. This means mobility that will ensure great prosperity in the whole region, while also taking care of the environmental and social development. We are witnessing today immense investments into new technological solutions and traffic research. I believe that already in this decade, we may expect solutions that will perhaps profoundly change present mobility partners and secure energy needs. Furthermore, in this search for such solutions, there is an important opportunity for cooperation between the researchers of the whole area. I would like to conclude my brief address with information that Slovenia is preparing a national program for development of transport and transport infrastructure, and we are also preparing a national energy program. When speaking about national energy program, we are focusing on efficient use of energy, we are focusing on renewable energy resources, and we are focusing on use of energy in transport. Especially in this area, we are all very much aware of that electricity is energy source of this century, especially when speaking about mobility. And of course, as a very small country with 2 million of people, in this part, nuclear power is also quite important part and future development in Slovenia. In view of the strategic position of Slovenia, it is expected that national programs will be additional initiative for increased interest of investors in Slovenian infrastructure under the most favorable conditions. We believe that modern infrastructure will also serve or even primarily serve the transit of goods from the fastest growing countries in the region, which is indeed the focus of today's discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening this brief introduction, and I hope we will have really opening panel and some furthermore discussion about maybe some concrete ideas, some concrete projects we would like to develop. I must say that I was visiting Russian Minister of Energy in the past, and by philosophy and the way of thinking, we are quite close to each other. and I believe that Slovenia could be quite a strong connector between region we are speaking today and European Union. Thank you very much.
I would like to take a second to summarize what I heard in terms of the questions. So each of you put together a completely different view on this topic, and some questions I a little bit expected, some are maybe new. So questions that I heard from you on one side is how do we address the issues of development in this region, especially with the staggering resource crunch such as water and electricity. From Mr. Ezhov, also a question of the future of Eurasian Union and how the Eurasian economic integration will influence the development of the region as a whole. Other questions also from the business sector: how do we harvest the power of innovation and emerging technologies for the economic opportunity? And also from the minister, not only is Russia and Central Asia attractive, but also how can we make ourselves more attractive for that region so that we are competitive when it comes to the customers from this region. I want to open the floor to the questions, but I will start with one question that I hope will kick off the conversation. What is the biggest opportunity in Russia and Central Asia today?
If I may, Russia is very important, and no doubt about it, great country. But the growth of and the role of Russia in the world would be based on their path of economic recovery. We all remember in the 90s, and you mentioned some of these years, when there was a low point in Russia's economic development. Now, when we see Russia, we see such a strong growth. And what is in the heart of this recovery? It's about energy. It's about energy is a great development, a great factor of Russia's development. And I think this goes hand in hand with the political stabilization and contributes significantly to the Russians' role in the world. So, and that's why we would, because we have our colleague from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which also says it plays a very important role in Russia's foreign policy. In the latest document that President Putin issued on the foreign policy, energy plays a very important role, and aspect is on that. If we just look how much of fossil fuels are exported from Russia to European Union, it's 2/3 of all European consumption is coming from Russia, which proves that the very important role of Russia in all of this. So energy plays a crucial role. Of course, on the other side, when we look into where all this oil and gas come from, one side is from Russian very rich fields throughout Russia. But some of the fields are up north in Siberia and everything, which have a difficulty for exploration, needs high technological levels, special materials. But a big part of this coming from Central Asia. And that's where I see the link of Russia and Central Asia. And Russia, for Russia, is very important to maintain very good role and a relationship with Central Asian countries in that respect, because we see the gas coming from Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, to Russia is going through the Russian pipelines supplying Europe. Some of this is used for the Russian consumptions, but the Russian gas is coming to Europe. So I see the importance of Russia to maintain its role. Later, maybe we can mention what are the dangers in this. First of all, it's prices that are playing important role. Gas and oil sold to EU are of big importance, but also the prices that are coming from Central Asia based on long-term agreements also play a role. But I believe Russia has interest to maintain this good relation in supply and quantities. What on the other side we see, China become very active in this part of northern Central Asia. So trying to, especially the countries like Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, to give them opportunity to build gas pipelines to bring this gas to China, because the needs for China are bigger, and China is investing a lot of resources into this. So I see there's a really lot of important events that might bring Russia to maintain its very important role in Central Asia.
So it's energy. Any other views?
Yeah, I will answer your question very briefly. From political point of view, a common agenda could be a great opportunity for Russia and the whole region and Europe. If we want to promote our relations, we do need some positive, some common agenda. And from our point of view, for example, the integration of integrations could be a choice, could be a solution for in these terms.
And definitely, for the last 20 years, the lack of common agenda was very visible. Each country is kind of wandering around in space with its own vision of what it needs to be. And in that sense, absolutely. So common agenda is an opportunity. Right?
In Moscow, I'm an expat. Yeah? So I'm Romanian, but I lived in Canada, and I go to the expat clubs. Yeah? And let's say out of 100 people at the expat club, there is myself and someone else in that work in new technologies, and the other 98, they all work in oil and gas. Yeah? That sort of tells you what the priority is today. At the same time, if you think of the general direction of an economy, I think that Russia has now the potential, the money to diversify. And I think that the real long-term or medium-term economic opportunity is the natural diversification that will come from a country that now has the potential to do that.
And the biggest challenge also, where to? Yeah. Where to invest, who to become, which is a question of common agenda. Minister?
Thank you very much. Great point for what I wanted to say. Of course, I will try to speak from point of view from Slovenian economy, seeking opportunities and maybe trying to help Slovenian economy with some new ideas, what would be target for markets we are speaking about. Mobility is something that is really part of our lives today, not just privately, but only in business. Also making quite an important issue also when speaking about economy. And what I can see that in Slovenia, we have great small and medium enterprises with great IPR, a lot of know-how from field of intelligent transport systems. We have a lot of know-how from smart community. So what I can see here is that the future is bringing this technology in this area, and Slovenia should seek for opportunities in this field where we can choose and we can have this opportunity to be able to offer information technologies. We can offer RTS systems in combination with smart cities that are coming. And of course, from electricity as a source of this century, this is something that will become very important when speaking about smart cities. And I believe that this amount of money that Russia and Central Asia is preparing to invest, especially in this part that is not so highly developed, is an opportunity for Slovenian market.
So infrastructure and ability.
Exactly.
I want to the whole community. So if you have the questions, I'm sure there's some microphones around. I have a long list of questions, but before I do, any questions from the audience? Yes, please.
My name is Bedra Kocian, coming from Serbia, and made a question for Mr. Alkalaj regarding the energy. What will happen if we have the further improving in the hydraulic fracturing like we have in the US now? And what will happen then with Russia and with the foreign policy? Like, you know, we are paying now, for example, in Serbia, Russian gas for $400, $450. And at the same time, you have in the Henry Hub in the United States export price of $100 per 1,000 cubic meters. Slovenia is paying probably the same price. What do you think? What will change in the future?
That's a very good question, because technology is moving forward, and we see that the prices, as you mentioned, on the fracking gas product, it's very, very low. You have to build some infrastructure to transport this gas. That's important, but will definitely have an impact on the Russian economy, in a sense, if the prices go down, because it still, until diversification of Russian exports become bigger, it's be a big loss of revenue. So I think it's something that it should be looked, and even to move forward, the speedy development of diversification of Russian export. And that would be a straight answer, because we know that there are other producers in the world, of Qatar and the others, and the prices are still very high, as we are paying in the Balkan region and elsewhere. And we all still depend on the Russian gas because of the infrastructure. So I think it would be a really challenge for us to diversify and also to look into the role of these developing countries. So it's very, very important to look into aspect of diversification as soon as possible.
If it's okay, I would like to invite the two colleagues from Russia to comment on the energy dependency of Russia.
You see, I haven't had an opportunity to deal with this question profoundly, but from my point of view, the actual plans of Russia to make additional pipelines to Europe, it's quite natural. It's can be only advantageous for both parties. That's why I understand, and the leadership of Russia understands that we do need diversification, but in such circumstances as we have now, this product, I would say, is the most profitable. That's why we speak also in this audience about gas. But gas forms our foundation, our capital for the future.
Yes, Jean-Pierre. There's one from the back.
Thank you very much. Jean-Pierre Lehmann. Yves Leterme, I don't know if he's still here, but in his presentation, he spoke about the importance of global value chains. And one of the things that I'm not conscious of is how much Russia or these countries' economies are part of the global value chain. One sees now an increasing globalization of value chains. For example, more and more African countries are becoming interested in Latin America, etc. What's the situation in Russia and Central Asia insofar as the global value chain or global value chains are concerned?
So what we see is that the number of companies and the countries that we work with is as large as any other multinational. So I've been in Moscow for 3 years. 3 years ago, it was difficult for some of my colleagues to understand that we will work with companies in Israel and companies in Finland and companies in Malaysia. Now, that's not a problem anymore. And the solutions that we put in banking, they do use components from what you'd call a global value chain. So things are improving. They may not be at the level that you'll see it today when an iPhone is made in China with components coming from 42 countries and from 120 companies, but it's getting there. It's much closer to what you would consider international norm. Okay.
I may add to that from my experience. The infrastructure, historical infrastructure in terms of production in this region is such that we produce a lot of bulk products. So let's say aluminum. We produce it to the point of the basic export, let's say briquettes. But more and more companies are investing in producing a higher level, high value add products. It is an infrastructure problem, so it's a long-term investment, huge investments in building new shops and so on. But it is happening more and more so. In that sense, also Russia is not only getting more from the global value chain, but is getting itself embedded more into the global value chain. But it's a slow process due to investments history.
There is a second angle which has to do with a government program that you may have heard of called Skolkovo, yeah, which is a combination of programs, but one of them that is relevant to your question is in this area outside of Moscow that used to be the village of Skolkovo, very many companies are invited to come and set up shop. They get all kinds of tax advantages. They have to set up the office there. They have to put people to work there. And this contributes to the integration of components and solutions. And in the end, also the ideas coming from all over the world into the Russian economy.
If you don't mind, I do have a question for the panel, and it has to do with the presentation of Mr. Ezhov on the birth of the Eurasian Economic Union. So the question for the panel about this union, is the new union, the Eurasian Economic Union, is it a threat to European Union or is it an opportunity for European Union?
Okay. First of all, to say that we in UNEC work closely with the Eurasian Economic Commission. We signed the memorandum of understanding how to work together, how to work on various trade issues, single window, border crossing facilitation, but also at the same time, we are working with the Commission for the Custom Union, and which is going to start like a Eurasian Economic Union as of 1st January 2015. There's a very close deadline, and we are using best practices that we have and learned from our European partners. And I believe this is opportunity. I don't see it as a competition. I think more what the countries are integrated now. We have 3 countries who are joined in this Eurasian Economic Commission, but I think there are a number of countries who are invited to join and to enlarge this single economic space, which is definitely would have an impact on the trade and all other aspects of cooperation among the countries in that region. And in that way, it would be easier to speak with the European Union and find points and where they can work together. So I don't think it's a threat. It's an opportunity for European Union, Eurasian Economic Union to work together and bring this world closer to better standard of life for its citizens.
Naturally, I share this opinion. As far as we can see, the UE understands that Eurasian integration is an objective reality, and our colleagues would like to work out mechanism for interacting through the EU institutions, primarily the European Commission, going from the level of experts where this interaction actually works to a higher level. And we can only welcome this approach. From our side, we are ready for such an interaction, such cooperation.
Opportunity.
Yeah, so almost 20 years ago, I have been through the huge fight in Canada about NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. And a lot of doomsayers said this is pretty bad, people will lose jobs. Yes, some people lost jobs, but in the end, the economic growth was tremendous. I think it's a much better opportunity to have free trade, because we can make a lot of money if we all buy and all sell, as opposed to, let's say, 2008, people thought that they will make money by selling houses to each other. Yeah. It's much better with this kind of economic model.
Well, I believe that when we are looking at philosophy of European Union, basically, if we take, for example, trading electricity, we are looking for total liberalization of market. So what we'd like to achieve with this end effect, that the customer would have the best way to choose the best one on the market. And I believe that this philosophy is exactly aligned with the European Union, and that would exactly point in the end to this goal.
Total agreement. It's absolutely an opportunity. Questions from the audience? Yes. Ambassador of United Kingdom.
Thank you very much, Nadia. Andrew Page, British Ambassador here in Slovenia. I'd like to refocus a bit more on Central Asia, if we may. Not because I'm not very interested in Russia, I am. My previous job when I was in London, I was the Deputy Director in the Foreign Office for Russia, South Caucasus and Central Asia. And in that job, admittedly I'm nearly 5 years out of date now, because I've been here 4.5 years, I visited all 5 of the Central Asian states and was fascinated to do so, including Kazakhstan, wonderful country. And what sticks in my memory is that those countries maybe hadn't developed as far away from the old command economy, if I can put it that way, to a more capitalist style of economy than some others. But Kazakhstan was a shining beacon in its economic policy, partly because I think that your president there had a very enlightened policy called the Bolshak scheme of scholarships, of sending out, if I remember correctly, about 5,000 young Kazakhs every year to various countries around the world in the West for different time periods, on condition that they come back to Kazakhstan again afterwards. Otherwise, there was a big financial penalty. And partly as a consequence of that wisdom and other policies, the Kazakh financial markets soared ahead, and your financial markets developed every bit as quickly as Russia's did. And I think it's helped your various enterprises to grow. We've seen many IPOs from Kazakh companies and so on. So my question goes to Central Asia, but particularly to policies about the young people. Okay, we've got huge problems here in Europe with youth unemployment being very high. I'm sure there are problems too in Central Asia. But what can we do in the European Union to increase the cross-fertilization of young people from Europe into Central Asia and vice versa, to open up those Central Asian countries and the eyes of the young people there to the opportunities of doing two-way trade? And how might that help to provide a really big opportunity for Central Asia to exploit its potential?
Anything on youth policy? Yeah, Mr. Alkalaj?
We in UNEC do not deal with the youth policy, but we are concerned for development of those countries in the Central Asian youth, and migration issues have a big impact on this. We know that in those countries, especially Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, there's a lot of migration workers to Russia because of the current situation in those countries and developments. So migration is one issue that we have to tackle first. I praised also the policies of President Nazarbayev, sending people out. That's what China did in the 60s. They were sending people out, and all of this knowledge came back, and it's paying, giving really good results. So I think the policy that Kazakhstan started, as you mentioned, as a beacon, and I participate this year in Astana Economic Forum, which is so enlightening, becomes really, I would say, a landmark of all developments in Asia in general, with almost 3,000 people in different panels in different aspects, giving a path how the region and how this part of the world should develop in the future. So I think I would encourage this kind of policy. All the countries from other countries from the Central Asia are not in a financial position to do this. Maybe they are too closed and undeveloped to allow this to happen, but I think Kazakhstan can serve as a good example for the other countries once they come to the stage like this. But this is very good policy in all ways and gives good results.
Busek.
Busek, former Stability Bank for Southeast Europe. There's another country having a kind of a Eurasian concept, that's Turkey. And as far as I can see, they're extremely successful because I think the cultural links to some Central Asian states are quite strong. I think it's a question maybe to Mr. Ezhov concerning, is it a competition or are you creating cooperation on this subject? I may say I was involved in the Black Sea cooperation. There is not too much cooperation between Russia and Turkey on this subject. so far it has an impact that we have not enough results on this. How is it looking towards Central Asia? Because I think it's for sure a key question. Maybe the Turks are obsessed by the Arab Spring consequences and so on and so on. But I think nobody was mentioning Turkey, but they are extremely present in Central Asia.
Thank you for the question. As far as I'm informed, there is not so much economic integration under this initiative of Turkey, of combining the countries also in Central Asia, which are close to Turkey in terms of ethnic origin. Our integration, the point of our Eurasian economic integration is really economy. That is seen as a basis on which our cooperation will develop. My question is can be seen as an answer to the question of His Excellency Mr. Ambassador of Great Britain. Young people in such countries as Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, they chose Russia, and Russia is attractive goal for them, not just because we cooperate in economic sphere. They learn Russian language at the schools, and as far as I'm informed, it is the policies, or state policies in these countries to maintain the Russian language as a source which promotes young people to go to Russia to earn money. That's why I see here more opportunities than contradictions with Turkey. There are probably courses of Turkish which help young people in this country to go to Turkey. Probably it's the right of our Turkish partners. But what we do is to attract the young people as migrants, labor migrants, to do our business together with these countries.
We're coming to the end, so I want to ask you a different question. We've talked about all the opportunities, and so far we're in consensus. The Eurasian Economic Union is great, Russia and Central Asia is big opportunity. What about threats? What about dangers? What about challenges? From your experience, where do you see the biggest challenges, and what kind of lessons learned can you offer in terms of pursuing opportunity in this region?
One issue we didn't mention here, which is, as I mentioned in my opening remark, it's water. Mm-hmm. That's one of the crucial questions in Central Asia, because water is life, water is energy, water is everything. So we know that two major rivers, Samudari and Sindaria, go through the Central Asia region. And this management of the water resources, energy vis-à-vis agriculture, poses a big threat to the stability of the region. Because I believe Russia, European Union, US, taking into account that Afghanistan is there, Iran is there, taking the region as in a larger perspective, has a very big interest to have the region stable and peaceful. Water is an issue that we are dealing with through our water convention that UNEC in 1992 water convention has trying to work with the member states in Central Asia to be more diligent in the water management, use of water resources that doesn't create conflicts. But as we see now, the use of water is big threat. Let's take example Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. For Tajikistan, they are building, and from the Soviet era, they're building a number of dams. And there is now one big dam in production. It's being reviewed by the World Bank, Rogun hydropower plant. That became a big stumbling block between Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, which prompted to close all connections, the roads, railways, airlines, no connection at all between these two countries. It creates a big problem for Tajikistan, which is developing. Second thing, Turkmenistan, who has been pretty much neutral in the whole region, and Kazakhstan is also infected, but in less amount. It's that, as I said, Tajikistan using water for energy resources, and most of the water he discharged during the winter. But during the summer, when agriculture in Uzbekistan it needs much water for irrigation, there is no that much water, it stays. So that proves that these two countries were really on the brink of war. UNEC and UN and the auspices, we were discussing with both countries in order to ease the tension. So I think it spreads throughout the region, Kyrgyzstan as well. So I think for us the biggest danger is creating any kind of uncertainty, conflict in the region. So peace and stability is of the utmost interest that we have to work and keep there.
So I believe there are many challenges, and they are manageable, most of them. There is one fundamental challenge that I keep talking about and advocating, which is more exchanges like this one. Let's say maybe fewer visas and fewer requirements to get to meet each other and talk and have both economic and personal relationships established. Let's say it will take a number of years before there will be a free trade agreement from, I don't know, Dalian and Vladivostok all the way to London. Yeah, that will take a while. But in the meantime, people can move, and this kind of discussions can happen much more often, and this will help manage the other challenges.
Well, I believe that Slovenian companies, Slovenian economy in this region is quite brave, but the biggest challenge we are all facing, our companies are facing, basically coming from small country, from small region, actually small companies are trying to fight for big job. So this is something that is, I would say, quite challenging on one hand, but also is offering quite big risks on the other hand. And this is something that is really strongly connected to the policy of this country, the complete banking system to support these companies in this region and to be able also to be their competitiveness and be able to seek for this opportunity and to also achieve this opportunity.
If you raise this question to the experts of our three countries, I think that the answer would be the following. The main obstacle for the Eurasian integration are national bureaucracies. They are not eager to lose their competencies. And in this sphere, there is the much need to cooperate with them, to take into account the real developments in each of the countries. That's my answer.
So we have on one side bureaucracies, water wars, closeness and openness, opportunities to play big in a very small things. On another side, a lot of energy that is financing the economic development of the region right now, and a lot of opportunity for diversification, for building new technologies, for developing new economies. So it's a kind of give and take, trying to balance the two. I thank you very much for your contributions. If there are any last questions from the audience before we give it back to Danica. Yes, so we have two questions. There will be one here and one here.
Hello. Evgeny Metalev. I'm represent company NIS Gazpromneft, where NIS stands for Naftna Industrija Serbia. So I come from Belgrade, and I don't have a question. I just want to comment on something. As Mr. Ezhov, I used to work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, so I just want to comment on his statement that single economic space between Russia, Belarus and Kazakhstan is a huge opportunity. Lots of things have been said here regarding free trade agreement and free trade regime. For example, I don't know if many people are aware here that Serbia has a free trade agreement with Russia. And as soon as Belarus and Kazakhstan and Russia have formed customs union and the single economic space, now Serbian goods can actually enter not only Russian market but Belarusian and Kazakhstan market without customs. I do know that some companies from Croatia are already trying to use this benefit, and they are moving their industry, their fabrics from Croatia, I'm speaking about food industry, to Serbia in order to be able to export their goods to Russia, Belarus and Kazakhstan without customs. I absolutely don't agree with the statement that Eurasian integration is kind of a threat to the European Union, because, as Mr. Ezhov has already said, this is more an economic integration process rather than a political one. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's one.
May
Yes.
I comment? I'd like to add that nowadays the joint customs union delegations participate in free trade negotiations between the customs union countries and Vietnam, European Free Trade Association, EFTA, and New Zealand. You can see that there is much interest among our partners all over the world to negotiate these free trade areas with the customs union.
And
hello, my name is, do you hear me? Okay, perfect. My name is Jean, I'm a student and working currently in Singapore. I would like to ask the Russian delegation their view on how actually Asian Pacific Economic Community, where Russia is playing one of the key roles, might influence the European Union relations if the European goes into a free trade agreement with the United States, and if there might be potential issues in the Middle East with Syria issue at the moment. So how do you see these two potential new blocs relating to each other and cooperating, if cooperating? Thank you very much.
If we are speaking about such a global problems, I'd like to ask you. I'd like to ask my colleague, also from the Russian Foreign Ministry, Mr. Pisarev, to answer this question. He's a deputy director of Policy Planning Department.
Can we get a microphone?
Asia Pacific, it's not actually economic bloc, it's a process which involves a huge number of countries on the Pacific Rims, and they are responsible for 60% of global GDP. And as I understand, European Union is dealing not with the Asia Pacific mechanism, but more precisely with ASEAN, and they have a special meeting, ASEM meeting, Europe-Asian meetings. It's a little bit different process. But again, of course, there is a huge potential. And we see the Euro-Asian integration as a sort of a bridge between our European Union and Asian region, Asian Pacific region as a whole. That's, I think, the main point. Maybe I'll take some more moment. The gentleman mentioned this Turkish Eurasian model. and Eurasian concept as well. Actually, Russian Eurasian concept and Turkish Eurasian concept, we discuss very closely how they can be combined and put together. And 10 years ago, we even signed a declaration on Eurasian concepts between Russia and Turkey. And the recent, you can find it, it's 2002, I think, something like that, during the visits of our foreign minister to Turkey. I think it's rather clear on this subject. And again, it's still on the surface. We are discussing these things, but different angles, of course. We in Turkey. For Turkey, it's Eurasian because part of Turkey is in Europe and part of in Asia, and they're looking it's more regionally. We look on this process more globally, as I mentioned already, as a sort of a bridge between our European Union and the Pacific Union. Thank you.
There's an absolute last question, which will be right here. There's more and more requests, so we'll have to manage them.
I will be very short in making a very direct question. I'm just a neighbor from Italy. So my name is Paolo Motta. I'm coming from an institute like very similar to you, of social and political and economic institutes. The question is this: in this big challenge, so the question is to you and to the infrastructure and special minister of you, in these new opportunities that are coming out from Belarus, Russia, and Kazakhstan joining process, and from the strategic position of Slovenia, and the minister just mentioned mobility as one of the main factors of trading and of economic success. And let's say that we, Italy, Northeast, we are very close to you. We are, let's say, one macroeconomic region like that. Is that your new transport planning is thinking to something of international networks and corridors toward Central Asia and toward Belarus and the other countries of the CIS, like opportunity of reinforcing all the strategic and economic factors involved with mobility? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this question. Well, actually, this is something that I was waiting on this panel. Now I have it. So, of course, it's maybe also important to mention that Slovenia is right now in a quite strong phase of privatization. And so we are thinking quite a lot about also infrastructure, inviting a lot of foreign capital in Slovenia. But when we are speaking about existing infrastructure, I must mention that when we are speaking about highways, our infrastructure is quite strongly developed. We have very short connection to Croatia that we are going to finish in approximately 1.5 years. When we are speaking about infrastructure and railways, we are investing a lot in interoperability. This year, we are actually investing for Slovenia, this is quite a huge amount of money, approximately 500 million euros in this infrastructure. So the answer would be yes, we really are aware of that this infrastructure is quite important. And also for some, maybe not so close future investments, but also I would like to mention that there is quite high support for South Stream project in Slovenia. We are aware that we are just 1% of the complete project, but with our strategical position, we are quite lucky that basically you cannot finish your pipeline without this 1% of pipes for Slovenia. So we are aware of our strategical position, and I believe that in the future, not just with the capital from Slovenia, but also for some foreign partners, we are going to invest in this infrastructure even more.
Well, thank you very much to all panelists. It's been very diverse, a kind of multifaceted discussion. We appreciate your trip and your contribution very much. And back to Danica.
Thank you. I would like to thank you very much and present you the present.
Thank you
also
very
to
much.
you, because this book is only 1 week old, so Nadya didn't see it neither, perhaps. to Mr. Alkalaj. I can send it to you to United States if you travel now to Central Asia. You know? And of course to Mr. Ezhov. Thank you. This is to remember our school and Bled and to come back, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you
And
very
of course,
much. Very nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Check if this is your name. Thank you very much for a great panel. I heard a remark there that you know, somebody didn't agree that this association is threatening European Union. In my experience, I always like, perhaps this was not the right word, but I always like that something is happening because this encourages me and gives me a fire to do something else. So European Union will be, you know, more interested probably in this region because of that. You never know. So this is always, as I said, turning crisis into opportunity and making something. And the same, we do that all the time. And I would like to thank you very much at the end for the great participation, for the great panels, for great addresses to all the participants. I would like to invite you for the lunch, and of course, which will be upstairs on the terrace. I would like once again to say that at 2 o'clock exactly the forum starts, and since there will be 500 people, it's better if you are there a little bit before, because you know, the places there are not so easy to reach, so it's necessary. It's like in a cinema hall when you let up all other people. And I also, you remember that you had on your seat the invitation to come to our big event, President's Forum, which is usually every October, but this year will be November 15, How Global We Are, where we invite really a very special person and big expert, Pankaj Gemawat, to talk to us. And of course, we shall have also a panel with business leaders who are going global. So we shall be always happy if you pass by, whether it's for seminar, conference, or for a cup of tea or coffee. Thank you very much and have further a beautiful day. Thank you.